Hello, everybody. How are we today? Happy Wednesday. Kind of have a glare happening here. Let's see, that's better. Okay. So happy Wednesday. It is 2:00, which means it's time for my Wednesday live show. Kind of want to come up with a new name for that. I think Wednesday live show is kind of boring. What do you guys think? Maybe it doesn't matter. Okay, so anyhow, last week we were speaking about leadership. We'd spoken about the difference between anabolic and catabolic leaders. I had stated that catabolic leaders manage and anabolic leaders lead, right? This week, and I'd given you a couple of characteristics that went with each, right? So this week, I want to continue that conversation, right? And give you another distinction that you'll find between catabolic and anabolic leaders, right? And that is that catabolic leaders delegate and anabolic leaders tend to participate, all right? So, most of us have been taught that delegating is something that we need to do in order to be effective leaders. And by no means am I saying that that's not true, because it in fact is very true. You do need to be able to delegate. But the difference between a catabolic leader and an anabolic leader is that a catabolic leader tends to wipe their hands of the task, right? So they wind up getting just like reports of how everything's going, and they kind of oversee things, right? As opposed to an anabolic leader, when they have time, goes and actually participates, right? So and participating certainly doesn't mean that that the leader is doing all of the work, that they're doing most of the work, or even any of the work, okay? Instead, it implies that they're available to people without hesitation, right? So it means that the employees or the group that they're leading or the other people in the organization know that they're willing to do anything that they ask them to do. If they ask them to, stand at the copy machine and make copies for an hour, I hope nobody does that anymore, but if they were to ask you to do that, they're willing to do that if it needs to be done, right? They're willing to get in there and get their hands dirty, right? I had sent out an email on Monday, and I have an example that I want to just read to you out of my email, because it kind of, makes it easy to see the difference between the catabolic leader and the anabolic leader, right? So let's say we have company A over here, right? And here's the scenario. Small business owner, okay? And they're expanding from 2 locations to 3 locations. The owner of the company assigns tasks to key staff members, right? So they've delegated, right? In company A, this is the catabolic company, the owner gets occasional progress reports, right? But remains out of the picture until everything's done, right? So again, they're just getting reports. They're not there doing anything with them. And in company B, the owner follows up frequently with the staff, right? But they also pitch in and work alongside with the workers when, time permits for them to do that, right? So this lets everybody know that they're part of the team, right? And they're above no task, right? So the staff knows where they are at all times in the project, right? As opposed to, not really performing as well and then getting reprimanded, for not performing well, as opposed to knowing like, hey, we need to have more focus in this area and being able to build up from there due to the high levels of communication that are available to them with the leader working with them, right? So the leader is there every step of the way participating, right? And what happens when we do this, when the leader is engaged in the process with people, right? These people tend to want to do a good job. They're also engaged, as opposed to the catabolic leader, kind of just overseeing, delegating, reprimanding, and looking at reports and giving orders, people tend to withdraw. Like, they feel like, hey, why don't you get down here and do it? I've seen this so many times at so many different businesses, right? And this happens in organizations too. And again, we don't only lead like at work. We don't only lead, when we're part of like, some group. It's not just leading a group. There's leading that happens with our families. There's leading that happens as parents, and there's really clear examples that you can see with parents as well. Oh, hey, Val. Yeah, so there's examples that you can see with parents as well. Like let's say I go to my child, right? Their room is a mess, and I say, this needs to be cleaned up in an hour or else, right? They might look around and feel overwhelmed and get nothing done and then get in trouble in an hour, right? But if I walk into the room and say, wow, this is quite a mess, like, what are we going to do about it? I ask insightful questions and, ask them what we can do and maybe make suggestions about like, hey, why don't you start on that over there and I'll start putting the blocks in the bin over here, right? They don't feel alone. There's participation happening and they're more engaged. They're more willing to do it. Again, you can see this in families and you can see this in life. Because I said in my last video and several videos that we lead our lives in general, right? We're not just leaders at places, but in our own individual lives, right? And I'd actually come across, I'm going to quote something that I read in the Harvard Business Review the other day. It was an article written by H. James Wilson, right? So he said, when we lead our lives, we set a vision and intentionally resolve to advance from a lower state to a higher state, right? We are not resigning to live life as it is. Okay, so when I read that, it resonated with me on a really deep level because I thought to myself, like, this is like, it's completely true, right? When we choose to lead, we're choosing to show up and engage in these different areas of our life and to take responsibility for it. So that way we can advance from where we are to where we want to be, as opposed to, he has here, resigning to live life as it is, but as opposed to settling and saying, okay, well, these are my circumstances and I'm victim to them, and I just have to deal with this, and wait for it to pass. That is never true. It is never true. You have the power of choice. We get to, choose who we are and who we want to be in each moment. Those are two of our foundation principles at IPEC. But again, so the participating as opposed to the delegating, right? As a leader, choosing to participate in where you're going in your life. You don't have to just go along with where the circumstances are leading you. You can choose to participate and get hands-on and say, well, hold on a second. I'm not going to travel down this road anymore. I'm going to make a left here, and go up that way because that's going to get me to my goal. These are things that we can consciously do. So anyhow, that's all I have for today. That's all I'm sharing today. You guys know that I do one-on-one coaching. I have my Energy Leadership Index assessment. It helps you know exactly where you are on that energetic scale, where your catabolic levels lie, where your anabolic levels lie, and how they show up for you specifically. It also shows you your specific stress reaction, so how stress shows up in you, right? And with that knowledge and awareness, we then have the opportunity to make those changes and turns that we want to. So if you're interested in any of that, you guys know how to get in touch with me, the About Me section on my business page. And I'll see you guys next week. All right. I hope you have a great Wednesday. Bye-bye.